Hi, welcome back to Beautiful Souls. This is the next installment of Force User Deku, titled A Master and Padawan. So, where we last left off our story, Izuku had just met his soon-to-be master. Now, no one has guessed this, so like I said, the red isn't symbolizing a Sith. That's just this creature's skin color, which we'll find out who it is very soon. So after the initial shock in meeting and everything between Izuku and his soon-to-be master, sorry, I had to take a swig of my tea. Izuku, wow. Okay, so Izuku, he says, well, my house is this way. I'm fairly certain Mom would want to meet you too. The woman underneath the hood, like Izuku can kind of see, like, her smile. And he can tell that this creature, even if it's not human, is a woman just because of its figure. Or at least he's assuming that this creature is female. Don't get in comment sections with hate. So, Deku shows the stranger to his home. On the way there, Deku is just feeling this person is not a threat at all. If anything, he's feeling. He looks over at the woman. It's ever so slight, but he can feel that this person went through pain in the past. And so the whole walk to his home is like that. So they arrive at the Midoriya residence, and Izuku, he opens up the door, and on the way there, he explained like their culture in Japan about like taking off their shoes at the foyer and everything, because obviously, even though this person didn't speak Japanese to Izuku, she spoke English, but in Star Wars that's considered common. So Izuku, being the smart kid he knows English, and the person, after hearing Izuku talk, is like started actually speaking to him in Japanese. So they arrive at the Midoriya residence, and Izuku comes in and opens the door. Mom, I'm home, and someone's here. She needs to speak to you. Who is it, baby? Says Inko as she comes into the living room and freezes. Because what she sees is this figure. As she's entering the living room, she sees this figure removing her hood. Inko just stares at the woman and says one word, Togruta. Deku looks at his mom with a very inquisitive look, and he says, Mom, you know her? No, sweeties. My apologies. Come, have some tea, miss. You know what I am. He was right. You're a smart one. My name is Tano. I'm here, Miss Midoriya, to fulfill a promise I made to the one you knew as Hasashi. Izuku then looks at her and he says, he's gone now, right? A few years ago, I felt a pain in my heart, says Deku. Both Inko and, yes, this is Ashoka. are shocked by this statement. Ashoka then asks the young one, explain how you know that. Sorry, I can't do a regal voice. I've practiced, I have tried doing recordings, which is why this has taken so long to get out. And my apologies about that. Deku turns to her and he came to me once in a dream. Well, at least I think it was a dream, but I couldn't tell who it is, but I just felt this warmth, and all the figure said was, I'm sorry. That's it. And just as I had it, then he turns to his mom and he says, I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't tell you. I tried, but every time I brought up Dad up, I felt pain coming off of you. Inko then runs over to her son and grabs him, and she's a little worried, but then she embraces her son with tears in her eyes and says, "Sweetie, I'm sorry I never told you about your father. I thought it'd be best." And Izuku hugs his mom and he says, I know. And Ingo, she gets up, wipes the tears from her eyes, because what Hasashi had told her about, like, the order is that they take the children away from their families and raise them in a temple. She turns to Ashoka and she says, Chano, was it? You're here to take my boy away, aren't you? It's the custom of your kind. Yes and no. Hasashi, the one you know as Hasashi, he explained to me that you're not force sensitive, but your planet has things called quirks. Very intriguing. Could be the Force working. And Izuku pipes up a little bit at that word, the Force. And then she turns, looking at the boy. It's like, I feel... And she reaches her hand out. She's like, I feel uncertainty from you, young one. Pain. Not pain for the loss of someone, but pain of not knowing. And Inko and Izuku are shocked at this. And Izuku asks, how did you do that? I could tell you thought you were the only one. It's a simple trick of the Force. As she turns to Inko. Yes, am here to gather the boy, but I won't be taking him off planet. I'm here to fulfill a promise I made to the boy's father. And before you ask, young one, I won't speak anything about your father to you. That's something for your mother here to explain. So after a couple of hours, Izuku and... Hold on, let me turn down the AC. Sorry about that. After a couple of hours, Inko is shocked by this. And she's like, well, if you need a place secluded to train him, my family, we own a lot of property. And, well, Mom, she would be happy to see him. Oh, you're mistaken. During his training, no one will be able to see him. It's... Usually, you don't grow up knowing who your family is unless you're older like this one. But, you won't have contact for 3 years, Miss Midoriya. And Inko, she looks down and then she turns to Izuku. Izuku, is this something you want to do? I won't force you to stay if you don't want, but I'm your mother and I'll always worry about you. Ashoko in her mind is just thinking, without training, it might turn out like Master did. And I can't let that happen. So Izuku, he kind of feels this and he looks at Ashoka with like wide eyes, and then he turns to his mother and he's like, Mom, I've this whole time I thought I was a freak, but after what Miss Tano said, I can't I believe her. I feel like this is the right thing to do, Mom. Inko then exhales like, okay then. Sweetie, just be safe then. She gives Ashoka like the coordinates, and then she says, normally we just take them as soon as we make contact, ma'am. But I will give you some time to spend with your son. I know as a mother, it's hard to let go of them, but no, I'm not a mother myself, but I understand the sentiments. As you probably already know about my kind, we're a communal species. I will be back here in a week. So, how much is this? Okay, we're at the 12-minute mark. Good. That means I can actually get through all of this. So, Izuku, over the next week, he's spending time with his mom. And she's going over story. She went over with Izuku about how she met his father and the years that they spent together and how they fell in love, and the one regret she has about all of it is not telling him sooner. And Izuku he constantly tells his mom, it's fine, Mom. You already said Dad had to leave, and I came to grasp that I'm not entirely human. Well, from what Miss Tano said, I am human, but I'm human from two different worlds. I need to do this, Mom. If I'm to become a hero, Well, in any case, if I'm supposed to become a hero, I need to learn how to control these abilities so I don't accidentally hurt someone or myself. So the week passes, Izuku and Inko hear the doorbell ring, and Izuku jumps up and runs over to the door, and he's like, Miss Tano, I thought you weren't going to come back. That's one thing you should know, young one. I'm not one to lie. And what I say, I mean what I say. Unless I have to do some deception. But, I did not speak any falsities when I spoke to you and your mother later. Oh, I'm sorry. Come in. As she comes in and she removes her hood. Now, mind you, she could walk around in public, but just the way that her extremities look, they don't look entirely human. She is a humanoid, but if someone really looked, they could tell that she wasn't human. So Izuku, he runs up to his room and he grabs like a duffel bag. Ashoka, she walks over to Inko and she's like, "Don't worry, ma'am. I will take care of your son. I'll make sure no one can harm him. And I have my reasons, but normally I wouldn't train someone that's already formed attachments, but something about your son. Masashi, he was right. Your guys' child is special. Special in a way that I haven't felt since a long time ago. But I promise you, when he returns to you, ma'am, he will be much stronger than he is now." Inko actually catches Ashoka off like surprise. She basically like hugs her. He's like, "Thank you. After talking with Tosashi about a few things years ago, I understand that you took a great risk to come here. Thank you." And Ashoka just kind of lightly pulls her up. You don't need to thank me, ma'am. I have to actually thank you. He seems like a nice kid. But with the training that I have to put him through, normally, it takes over 10 years for a child to become a Padawan. And many more years after that before they become a Jedi Knight. So, the reason why he can't have contact is I basically have to condense 10 plus years of training down to 3. Inko kind of gulps out a little bit about this because she did hear stories from Hasashi about the days that he was in the Jedi Temple. And Inko comes down and he's like, "Mom, what's wrong?" She's like, "Nothing, sweetie. I just, you know." And Izuku, he runs over to his mom and he's like, "Mom, everything will be okay. I need to do this. I can't explain it, but I have to do this, Mom." So Izuku and Ashoka leave. She puts her hood back on, and the whole time Izuku's like asking her a bunch of questions. Ashoka then like smacks him on does the classic anime thing where she karate chops him on the top of the head. And Izuku, he's like, "What was that for?" "First rule, young one. Speak when you're spoken to. At least for now. Your impulses, you need to learn to control your emotions. My whole time traveling to your planet, I could feel the anguish, the anger inside of you. It almost deterred me from even offering to train you. But from now on, you no longer call me by my name. I'm your master. And you are my Padawan." Over the first year during Izuku's training, he's brutal. She puts him through the ringer. I mean the ringer, physical condition. Because this whole time, Izuku, he's been relying, subconsciously, he's been reinforcing his body with the Force, which has given him nigh superhuman stamina reserves. But she kind of first trains him in meditation she basically explains to him that your body, it's weak. Your connection with the Force is strong, I can tell that, but your body sorry about that. Your body cannot handle the amount of force that you are able to wield. So, we first have to train your body, and then, while training your mind. So try to stop using the Force to reinforce your body. Izuku, by the end of this first year, we see a drastic change. And Izuku, he's no longer the scrawny little Deku that we all know. He's actually quite muscular. I would say he's even more muscular than his 10-month training arc. Then, so we cut to a scene where Izuku is sitting on top of a pile of rocks, barely sitting there, just meditating. Ahsoka, she throws rocks. She's throwing rocks at him, and Izuku, he's just catching them out of the air, one after another. And if someone were to come onto the scene, it would almost seem like Izuku has some kind of sixth sense. The way that he moves, it's precise, but it's fluid. As though he wasn't moving at all, but he clearly was catching the rocks, because after about 30 minutes of doing this, he basically drops a pellet, and as soon as it hits the ground, it creates a small crater. And Ahsoka's like, interesting. He's learning at a extreme rate. Good. But he still feels unsure about himself. So then the next year of his training is used in hand-to-hand combat. And this is when Izuku, he occasionally will get a broken bone, and she tells him, get up again. And there, Ashoka, she's not stupid. By far, she's as smart as her. Alright, sorry about that interruption. I'm gonna have to cut and splice again. Okay, so where was I? Second here. Okay, yeah. So Ashoka, she's by far as smart as she was in canon of the Clone Wars, and also what we've seen from the Mandalorian. So I'm not dumbing down Ahsoka and her power. She's as strong as she would be at the age that she is in this story. And for those of you who don't know when this story takes place, it pretty much takes place during, like, after the Clone Wars, but kinda sorta during episode 4, a little bit. Like, think about about Legends material. It's not with the Clone Wars, like, kind of fusing like all Legends lore. Timelines kind of mix up a little bit, but the assumption is the whole events of 4, 5, and 6 take place after the Clone Wars, but before Ahsoka goes on her journey like Luke does. For many that don't know, kind of spoiler a little bit, but not really, because if you've read the Ahsoka light novels, you would know that she actually goes on a journey similar to Luke. So before Luke does the whole revitalization of the Jedi Order, Ahsoka's already on her journey, so that's why you don't see any of like her and Luke interacting. So this happens after the Clone Wars, but before Luke starts Order. So around, during this whole series will happen during the events of episode 4, 5, and 6. So sorry about that tangent. So Ahsoka, not being dumb in the slightest, she actually looks up this planet that the inhabitants call Earth. And she sees that there's actually a bunch of different types of sword styles. And she's like, interesting. Well then. So, after Izuku, after the 30 minutes of these rocks, she kind of disappears. And Izuku has been commanded that he has to meditate here for, all day, from sunrise to sunset. So as Izuku, he's just been meditating, thinking. He's been basically letting the Force flow through his body and not localizing it, not controlling the Force, but just existing in the Force. Because Ahsoka has this theory about this boy. If he's anything like Master, he's very strong and has a strong connection to the Force. So she's training him to be a Jedi Knight. Hopefully Izuku becomes a Knight, but we as the viewers and me as the writer know Izuku won't become a Jedi Knight. I stated that at the beginning of the series, and I stated that in Discord. Izuku won't be neither Jedi nor Sith. That being said, back to our story. So as Izuku, he starts feeling the warmth of the sun to go down, he continues meditating for another 30 minutes to an hour, and then he no longer feels the warmth of the sun. So right before he get up, he feels Ahsoka's presence. He's like, Master, you've returned. As he gets up from his meditation position, he notices that Ahsoka is holding 2 interesting items. And he's like, Master, what are those for? Well, you see, young one, I looked into the history of your planet. Your kind has things called swordsmanship. Well then, your next lesson will be learning how to wield a saber properly, so you don't lop off your hands or feet, or your head by accident. Little smile on her face, and Izuku sees it, and he kind of gulps at this. So she just throws him a wooden sword. And the next year and a half, because this is about halfway through his second year of training, Izuku, he's learned many different types of forms of swordplay. He's even incorporated styles from his planet in with what Ahsoka trains in. Then Ahsoka, she's holding her sabers, and Izuku, he's walking away. She immediately ignites it, and Izuku, he turns around as Ahsoka's coming in with scissors, with a scissor and kick movement. He blocks her feet, jumps back, flips a couple of times. Ahsoka charges at him, and before she can connect the sabers, the ignited lightsabers with Izuku's hand, she just feels like the Force moving her away. She deignites the sabers, and then she puts them back on her son, and she smiles. I think it's time for you to find your own Kybers, your own Kyber crystal. young one. It's about time that you build your first saber. And Nigasuko, he's like, really? You think I'm ready for that? Does that mean we're going to be going off planet? And Ashoka, like, shakes her head. No. I've been feeling the force. There's a kyber crystal somewhere on your planet. And using instruments on my ship, I've been able to narrow it down. Fortunately for you, young one, a kyber crystal does exist here in Japan. But you will have to use the force to find it. This is your last test. When you find the kyber crystal, you'll see me once more. At that, Ashoka just turns away and starts walking away from Izuku. He starts to run to her, but then he stops. No, it's a test. I have to do this on my own. But why? Padawans are always supervised by a Grand Master when they find their first kybers, because the planet... Izuku stops that line of questions. Like, she said, use everything that I've taught you to find it. That means the Force. Of course. Could it be that thing I felt? Izuku, he closes his eyes and he's just sensing in the Force, and then he feels something pulling to him. He opens his eyes and he's like, it's that direction. He begins to run, and like, he's using force enhancement. Like, he's kicking off with the force, kind of jumping through like the woods, occasionally going out of the tree line and landing, and then he lands, and he looks up to where he's at, because this whole time he's kind of been doing this without looking, and then he's like, whoa, that's Mount Fuji. And yes, the person that I talked to about this, I already had it written in. Just wow. So now we're actually going to cut to several thousand, we're going to cut to about 2,000 years prior to these events. A meteor crashes on the world that the kyber crystals are found, and it dislodges a nice chunk of of the mountain into orbit. And this rock structure moves, and if someone watched it, that was force sensitive, they could feel the force acting in this, and they would be shocked by it. As this meteor, or this chunk of mountain, enters the Earth's atmosphere, after traveling for 1,000 years, at breakneck speeds, mind you, like near FTL speeds, after traveling for thousands of years, after traveling for about 1,500 years, the meteor begins to enter Earth's atmosphere. And if people were to look into history, they would notice that the Night of the Red Scar, and how it affected people. Or no, actually my math was wrong there. Sorry about that. This actually happens about 50 to 100 years before the events of quarks and everything. And no, this isn't how quarks came about. It's a totally separate thing for other parts, explanations. I did want to focus on the MHA side. I'm going to focus more on the Star Wars side of things. So it streaks across the sky, starting in the US, and then goes across the sky, streaks across the Pacific. Yeah, sorry, my geography is not that great. I believe Pacific, I'm fairly certain, because the Atlantic is, Pacific. Streaks across the Pacific, streaks across Europe, and streaks across Russia, and it crash lands into Mount Fuji, which causes it to erupt. The first time in 100 years that it erupts. But then as soon as it erupted, it wasn't like a major eruption. Like, lava did flow, and they investigated it. They've done some seismic tests, and nothing can be found. At least nothing that their primitive equipment. So it was just marked as an unassuming day, the day of the red skull. Because there was like filament that was in the sky that after a day it kind of dissipated. So we cut back to Ezekiel, and he's looking up, and he's like, he closes his eyes, and he raises one hand up to the mountain, and he's like, it's near the summit. But how? How could something like this exist on the planet? Kyber crystals usually don't. Whatever. Crap, I didn't bring any cold gear. But Master said that I had a week to accomplish this, and it's already been a couple of days. Well then, I don't have the time. So he begins to jump, and people catches glimpses of this, and they're trying to stop him, but Ezekiel, he's not even paying attention to anyone. The question is the boy deaf, and they can't catch up with him, because they're like, some heroes did try to stop him, like, saying, you can't be using your quirk. And Ezekiel just ignores them and everything, and then he eventually gets up to a point to where they can no longer follow him. He goes, cold, but I'm almost there. He actually gets to like the summit, and he's like, it's near the summit, but this is the sun. Why? It can't be. It's inside. In Ezekiel, he sits down, like he starts kind of levitating a little bit, and he crosses his legs, and he gets into a meditative state. Then, after about 30 minutes of meditating, he opens his eyes, he takes in a deep breath, and he uses one hand, he breaks the crust of the caldera, and lava begins to shoot up. People feel the tremors in the mountain, and they're scared. Reports of Mount Fuji starting to erupt again after being dormant for over 200 years, like, begins to happen. They see a column of lava shoot up. Like, if you were standing at the base, you would just see a column of lava shoot up. Then, as soon as the rumbling, like a few minutes after the rumbling, in this pillar of lava just flowing upwards, not like landing, you just see it come back down the way it came. But if someone was paying attention, they would see a rock come flying out of like the pillar. And during this, you would see Ezekiel using one hand, and then it looks like he's pulling the rock towards him. And it comes and it lands right in his open hand that he's not. And he's like, okay. He puts the rock like into like his back, into a backpack, a satchel. And then he reaches both of his hands out and he goes, now go back in. And as he does this, people just feel a shockwave go across the sky. And as soon as, like, because they just see the pillar of lava just shoot back into the mountain. And then Ezekiel's like, it won't stay, I have to. Oops, sorry about that. I'm actually sitting in my car outside of work. I tried getting this recorded beforehand. So Izuku, he basically closes the caldera, and then he passes out. And before he can pass out, Ashoka catches him, and she's like, puts like a coat on him, and she's like, you did it. You found it. Now, let's see what kind it is. And Ashoka basically like hits it with like a karate chop. And when the rock splits open, Izuku just sees Ashoka looking at the crystal, and she's like, impossible. These are supposed to be of legend. And Izuku's like startled by this, and he's like, Master, what is it? Well, young one, you should pick it up yourself. It's a very special kyber crystal. One that's very sought after. Kind of funny how it ended up here on your planet. It is called a ghost fire kyber. And with that, you beautiful souls, that's where I'm going to end this part. Sorry about the horn beep and the interruption, because someone on Discord messaged me. That being said, comment down below what you think about this. Tomorrow, I have 2 videos that are scripted. I'm really going to try to get those recorded, and then I will get working as soon as I get at least one of those videos that I have planned to come out tomorrow recorded. I will start working on getting the Christmas special recorded, and then I'll go to another video that hopefully I can get out after I get the Christmas special part 0 recorded. Like the video if you enjoyed it. It helps out. I'm trying to reach 4K by the end of the year, which it's looking like I will most likely not achieve, but I'm hopeful. But that being said, I'm still reaching for 4K. I will comments are good. The Christmas special, many of you already know, is What If Deku Had Wish, and I will go for more of that in another video. That being said, see you beautiful souls in the next video.